Oi, oi, hello and welcome to another Which Bookie YouTube preview. It's day 3 of the Royal Ascot meeting. I'm joined again by Will Smith. Me and Will have been looking at this racing. It's just before midday on Wednesday, getting my days of the week confused. But we've had day 1 racing. We've got maybe a few clues that might help us through to Thursday's form. We're yet to see Wednesday's racing, but I think Thursday looks a bit more appetising than Wednesday did. Saying that, it's just because I had big price fancies for Wednesday, but there's a lot for us to get stuck into. So we'll crack straight onto that. But before we do that, I just want to mention a few sponsors that we've got with Which Bookie that helped us get these videos out. So we've got BetTom, we've got TalkSport Bet and Tote. There will be links in the description for the sign-up offers of each of those new accounts, and the terms and conditions can be found in the description too. So Will, kicking off in the 2:30, it's a 5 furlong Norfolk Stakes. It's the fast and furious races we like to get kicked off in these races, but we've got a pretty short price favourite in it in Charles Darwin. Top price 11-8, but a general 5-4 poke. We've got a Wafnan runner. They had a good day on day 1, didn't they? We've got Naval Light in there as 4-1, but he's more of like a general 7-2 poke. We've got Afghan that's top price 9-1, and then a general sort of 8-1 poke, and then it's 10-1 or bigger. The rest of those 16 runners in it, can be a maximum field of 28. I can't remember the last time the Norfolk Stakes was that big. I'm pretty sure in the last few years there's only been like 10 runners in there. But Charles Darwin hasn't scared them all away. But should he have done, Will? Is he just the good thing that the market's suggesting he is?
I think he's got a great chance, hasn't he? I mean, we saw with Aidan O'Brien's 2-year-olds on day 1 with his winner of the Coventry, Gustard. You know, the chosen ones in all of these races are very much that. You know, they produce absolutely standout performances at this meeting, improve on what they've done. And Charles Darwin has obviously produced a decent level already. He's very similar, I think, to his brother Blackbeard, who just seemed to improve all the way through his 2-year-old season for racing and for experience and kind of getting his head together, because he was a bit of a nutball, wasn't he, to begin with. But Charles Darwin looked good at Naas last time out. I think the draw is interesting. Obviously, drawn under the stand side rail. We'll know a little bit more from that today, whether that's any particular positive or negative. I mean, the stand side was pretty much unexplored yesterday, so it might well be that that's probably fresher than some parts of the track today. So we'll see. And the other angle to consider is that the wind has switched, or will have switched around a little bit for Thursday and Friday, and that there's now going to be a tailwind for those couple of days. So horses that are kind of rolling on the front end on this fast ground, they just might not be able to be pegged back by the remainder of the field, which all would make you think that Charles Darwin has an excellent chance. I think in terms of trying to find a bet in the race, I'm going to be looking towards the without markets, certainly without Charles Darwin, and quite a few firms offer without Charles Darwin and without Naval Light as well, because I think he's a very good horse, Naval Light. What he did on debut at Beverley, defying greenness to eventually run on into second, I think he's probably going to be right in there in the mix for this as well. And there's a couple of horses that are priced up in the outright market in the 20s to 1. But I just think in terms of taking on Charles Darwin, you might be throwing away the win part of the bet. So basically, without Charles Darwin and Naval Light, I'm going to be playing Hey True Blue and Clear Force in that market. You can both get double figures each way with various firms 3 places. So essentially, without those 2 top market leaders, you can still finish 5th and get a return on the place part of that bet. Hey True Blue, similar really to the Kevin Ryan horse I fancied in the Coventry yesterday, but I thought he ran okay, just didn't get any cover and ran a bit fresh. And Hey True Blue ran a similar kind of race at Leicester, really. I think he's going to step forward from that. He's a big old price, actually. And Clear Force, Carl Burke's other runner, you have to forgive him a little bit, the National Stakes run at Sandown, but that was a day when there was a strong headwind there, and you basically needed to be covered up on the rail, I think, on the 5 furlong course, which the winner was. Clear Force was out in the middle of the track, basically blazing a trail down the centre, and he lasted for a long, long way before just fading in the final 50 yards. I think he's really quick. I think he's a proper Carl Burke 5 furlong trailblazer, and he's drawn next to Charles Darwin. So I could see the race developing sort of down that stand side with those, and I think he'll get dragged into the race by the quality on that stand side, and I think he'll quite significantly outrun his price as well. So yeah, couple in that sort of more exotic market at bigger prices. Clear, let me get the words right. Hey True Blue and Clear Force. There we go.
I love that, Will, because that's the thing of it. I've a similar disposition about Charles Darwin. The big nagging doubt, because obviously Gustard was filthily impressive yesterday. After seeing like him in Field of Gold, it's like we're royally at Royal Ascot now with performances like that. Charles Darwin, like the price that he is, like he warrants being like that short, I guess. The Blackbeard in him is the bit that worries me a tiny bit because, like you say, it took him a little bit of racing. But I remember when he got beat at Royal Ascot, he went up to 6, didn't he, when he ran at Royal Ascot? But then when they ran him at the Curragh after, I remember just watching him. I think there's loads of clips on Twitter and things about that with him like rearing and stuff at the start. And like it was a part of what people liked, wasn't it? Everyone says, oh, it's buzzy sprinters. They're just getting worked up before the race. But it's got to be a concern going to like a big meeting like Royal Ascot if you've got a family where there is a potential temperament issue and if you want to steam in. So it's one of those, isn't it? You'd see how he goes to post, you'd see how he is pre-race, and then if there wasn't anything, you'd fancy him a bit. Even on the flip side of that, though, it didn't stop Blackbeard running real close in that race at the Curragh. So if he started to mess about before the start, you might end up getting 7-4 about him. So it's too much of a thought process to think about backing Charles Darwin in my mind at the price that he is. Those without markets you've touched on are phenomenal because I moan about it all the time about the number of places bookies are offering. 16 runners in here, we're getting 4 places. It's not handicap. That is fine. But like you say, you take them 2 out of it and there's firms offering 3 places. You're essentially getting the first 5 and your horse can come third and you get paid out for the win. I know obviously there's a condition in the price. So I hadn't fully thought about it with those without markets. But what I had thought about, Will, was that Clear Force was the one that I wanted to go by. I've talked about the horse that Clear Force pretty much slammed on his second start. That's a horse, that Secret Hideaway, that I think is being underappreciated for the run at York just because it was a bit of a headwind and got loads of cover. And I think people are saying that's the only reason the horse won the race. But I was taken away with what Clear Force did in that race. Then the race at Sandown as well. It's very loose form and obviously every horse is individual. But the race that he won at Ripon, that novice, that was the highest recorded RPR performance in that race, like for a long time. The previous horse that had run a better figure than him was a horse called Kinks, who had a bit more experience, but strangely or curiously went to Sandown for the same race and bombed in that, and then came and ran in this race. Admittedly was 6th of 10, but was only beaten a few lengths, and there was a difference with the ground and stuff back then as well. So I just think from like a pointer perspective, the Ripon race could be quite a good pointer, and he was a very impressive winner of that race anyway. I'd forgive most horses for a bad run at Sandown because I think it could be quite niche. On that day, he was drawn in stall 7 of 7. 1, 2, and 3 were the horses, or the stalls 1, 2, 3 made up first 3 in the betting or the finish. And although one of them was drawn low and then came on the outside of him, I feel like Sandown is very much one of those tracks. Like if you're just not in the right place, you've got almost no chance in there. So I'd forgive him the Sandown run. The market's not, is it? Because the market's got him 25 to 1 top price in the race, but as low as 16s. I'd say the 16s about him is too big. So where you've mentioned double figure prices in that without market, because Charles Darwin's could be phenomenal and Naval Light could be phenomenal as well. Clear Force, I would say, is clear of the rest of them. So the way that you've worded it, Will, is even better than the way that I have. That is going to be a definite bet. I'll have to have a look, I guess, as quickly as this goes out, really, because it's one of those, isn't it? If a few people latch onto it in those without markets, soon becomes 5 or 6 to 1 poke in those. Those ones. It was a good performance of Ripon, I thought, and I'm glad that you've got him as one of your 2 in there as well.
Ripon run was good as well because on the same day there was a 0 to 105 sprint handicap for older horses, and he would have finished on the coattails of the first 4 or 5 home in that if it had run concurrently. If you see my reasoning, and that's for a 2-year-old. That's quick for a 2-year-old to be able to do that against 0 to 105 older sprint handicap.
100%. And that's why I quite liked the Secret Hideaway thing for today. Not to talk about it too much, but we'll move on to the second race. But he got beat by a very good horse, was my view of it, and he was so fast, like a proper sprinter. It was almost like Clifford Lee couldn't hold on to me; just to let him go. And I think at Ripon it helps because you've got that rail to sort of keep you going with it as well. But he looked a bit babyish while still looking like an absolute rocket. And I think he probably would have just learnt a bit from Sandown after the back of that. So good that we're in agreement, Will, because you had a reasonable first day. And we'll see how Wednesday goes, but I forecast by the prices that I put that maybe you'll have a better day. But who knows? Bit of luck's required at Royal Ascot, and we're all due it. Into the second race we go, they will. The King George V Stakes Heritage Handicap. This one's over 1.5 miles. Max field of 19. We have got the 19 in here. Merchant is coming for some, I say significant support. It probably is going to be significant. Top price 7-2 at the time of recording. General 130 poke. I feel like by the time this is uploaded, when people are starting to watch it, it might be even shorter than that. We've got Serious Contender, was originally the favourite and in some places still is. He's a top price 7-2, but a general 3-1 poke. We've got Sing Us a Song, who's an 8-1 poke, general 15-2 poke. Gunship, as big as 10-1, but as short as 15-2. Masai Moon, it's 10-1, and then it's 14s or bigger the rest. So, Will, this looks like a pretty good handicap. And I know there's money for a few horses in here, but I dare I say I feel like it looks relatively deep. What's your thoughts on this one, and where was your eye drawn initially?
Yeah, it's always a deep race, this, actually. Really enjoy this every year. It turns up good horses, good 3-year-olds moving forward. And I think there's a horse in here who should be vying for favouritism with those two at the top that you mentioned, Merchant and Serious Contender, if not clear favourite, and that's Sing Us a Song for Rafe Beckett, who I hope has a decent day today, because I've backed one of his middle distance horses, Pinhole, in the Queen's Vase as well. So I'm hoping that sort of provides the stable with a bit of a boost. But Sing Us a Song won the 10 furlong handicap at Sandown on the 25th of April. Now, that was obviously a good Sandown card. It featured various other decent races, the Gordon Richard Stakes, the Classic Trial over the same course and distance of the 10 furlongs. And there was a headwind that day at Sandown as well. And Sing Us a Song, basically, he went out and got into a decent rhythm. And coming down the straight up that hill, you thought, well, he's probably just going to pay for the exertions that he's put in here, because he was matching strides with that Classic Trial and that Gordon Richard Stakes. Very, very good races featuring older horses, the likes of Al-Azi, Winlord, and 1-2 others. But then when he's challenged with about 2 furlongs to go, he just finds another gear. Hector Crouch, asks him for second or third gear, and he properly goes again, in a manner that you don't often see for horses that having been sort of challenged at that point in a race at Sandown. And to me, that was a really striking performance on the clock, not too far behind the likes of Al-Azi, who's a genuine Group 1 older horse at that trip, and stepping up to 1.5 miles on what he did that day looks to me like it could be a real positive for him, and a big step forward of improvement. That was his seasonal debut as well, don't forget. So for me, Sing Us a Song, I think, is a really exciting horse. I'd be amazed if he's not absolutely bang there. Wathnan obviously saw that as well, and they've splashed out on him, and I think they've been absolutely right to do so. They've obviously had a good day one, as we saw yesterday, and I think Sing Us a Song, like I said, should either be joint favourite or clear favourite for me in this. You can get 15-2, 8-1 extra places. Brilliant bet to me.
I mean, I'm glad that we do these previews, Will, because there's nothing better than confirmation bias from a very good judge. Because I looked at this, and I know it's just the nature of the beast, I guess, with the fact that of like 10 furlong races or 10 furlong handicaps, and then these 1.5ers, and especially the age that they are, being 3-year-olds, there will be some intertwining in form. But this one is a web of sort of tying in form, because Merchant I do like, and there's going to be a lot of horses in here that are better than the handicap mark, but they might need to be quite a bit better to go and actually win this race. But Merchant does look obvious. William Haggas improves with these types of horses, I think, and there's a bit of form that tied in with him and Lightning Man for Jack Shannon, and I quite like Lightning Man, but he'd had lots of runs, and then you think to yourself, well, they're weighted about the same now. There was a £5 difference with him when Lightning Man did beat him by a length, but then you'd think, in the reality of the extra 2 furlongs and race fitness and those things as well, that probably Merchant would be able to reverse that form. But the price discrepancy between those two, one's 3-1, one's 16-1, looks too big to me. Then there's form lines with Gunship as well through Merchant, and I look at him and think, well, they ran off of levels. There was a short head between them. There's a £1 difference between the two of them now. So like the form's getting franked for Merchant, but it's getting franked by other horses in this race that he's going up against. Yet the market's looking unfavourably on those, but looking favourably on Merchant. So again, I can see the reasons why he sits up there. But I look at Sing Us a Song that ties in with that form as well, especially through some horses that have run behind him at Sandown. And I think to myself, he's the one that is ahead of those horses. He was given £3, I think, was it to Gunship at Sandown? Was the horse that, like I say, that's now £1 worse, or £1 better off with Merchant, but was only a head behind. And like I say, is franked for form. So that would make Sing Us a Song a couple of pounds better than both those horses, in my opinion. But I know it doesn't exactly work out like that. Like you said with Wathnan picking him up as well, like it's a notable purchase when they get a hold of any horse, but it's also a notable purchase after a seasonal debut when the horse has had its handicap debut, because it must have been a horse that they've said, we didn't even expect that ourselves on debut. It's not like he was overly smashed in the betting there. I know he got sent off at 4-1, but it's not like he was a smash-up job. I think they must have known that he was relatively well handicapped, but I think it was a stepping stone to come in for something bigger. So yeah, I completely agree that I think this horse should be favourite for the race. So I'm enjoying speaking to you so far. Well, it's going nicely. This is a good one as well. We have got the 19 runners in there. We've also got 6 places up for grabs with a couple of firms, and there's 5 places, sort of a general price that's in here as well. So, like I say, there is definitely a few horses in here that are nicely handicapped. Masai Moon's one that's interesting, I think, if there's a little bit of money for it, because he's had a Gelding operation, and his novice performance was all right last time out, without being anything sort of outlandish. But he did rally really well at the line. So, you know, being gelded, he might have something in him that's holding back his potential. But in the horse like Sing Us a Song, and I do think with horses like Merchant as well, they look like they're trying their best and they're going to be able to show you that. But the concession there of being able to get each way profit, if Sing Us a Song does even just place, feels like a great way to get things off. Well, we're going to get the place put up on Tuesday or Wednesday. I've already guaranteed that to all the viewers from yesterday's video. We're kicking off to a flyer in this one as well, I think. So I appreciate that. It's good because, like I said to you before we came on air, I was like, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to Ascot. I want to try and find a couple of bets. There was only really one that I wanted to get stuck into, but yeah, I want to get stuck into more now. So it's good to hear you're on the same thoughts process as well, Will. Right, we'll move on to the Ribblesdale Stakes. That I definitely need some help in this one because I think loads have got chances in it, and the hard problem with it is, I don't know how much difference there is between some of these horses. Windows is probably the best way that I'd word it for myself. So we've obviously got the fillies in it. It's a trip that lots of them have been at. It's a trip that some of them will have to try and show if it's going to be the right trip from all the best form. And there's been disappointments with lots of these types of horses before. Like they might have been tried in better company. They drop it back. It could be easier bits for them. I do think Life is Beautiful. I'm drawn to her more than anything because she ran behind Falakea, who I think is an absolute monster in that Pretty Polly at Newmarket. I expected her to win. She won better than I thought she would. And then I know they didn't run her in the Oaks, but they've talked about minding her and saying that she doesn't stay the trip of an Oaks, which is why, again, she wouldn't come into a race like this. But I think if Falakea is like a miler or a 10 furlong horse and Life is Beautiful gave her a lead and still wasn't disgraced in that Pretty Polly, which I know it's a listed race, but I think Falakea is a Group 1 horse. I think like Life is Beautiful stepping up in trip, which is going to suit her. That's a reason to bring out a bit of improvement because she'll go off in front and then she might be able to sustain it. When she was just behind Kontiki before as well, that's a horse that's landed a listed race after. So I think she's got a chance, in my opinion. It depends how she's ridden would be my reservation with her, because the first time she raced, she was a bit of she just got a bit annoyed at the start, and then she was out the back, and then more like midfield, but she was out the back, then they moved her into midfield, and then when she got in front, she looked breathtakingly impressive. And when I watch it back, she was still good in those last races, like I said, the Pretty Polly, but I actually go back and look at her debut and think, I think she's better if they didn't have to force the pace. And here, we've got a lot of horses, even especially Serenity Prayer, who I do respect. It's another horse that probably will want to go and make the running. So I think there'll be loads of pace on in here. And if they decide with Life is Beautiful to sit her behind and take a bit of a lead, I think she would have a phenomenal chance. Now, the Goslings have done well in this race. So's Aidan O'Brien, but I mean, that's most of Royal Ascot races when we're talking about Aidan O'Brien. But they've got 3 in here, haven't they? Rab Haven's not on. Tom Marquand's on, which is the first time Tom Marquand will be riding this horse. I like the makeup of this one for Life is Beautiful. So she would be the one that I would. It's not even gun to head to want to have a bet on. I think around about 7-1, she looks all right. The 3 places is where it should be, really, shouldn't it? We've only got 11 runners in the race. But if it was 4 places, I think I'd have a good go at her, because I think if she does make the pace, she's going to fade away, and at least 2 are going to be better than her. If she sits off the pace a little bit and then they do manage to maybe use a little bit of that mile speed she showed to lead Falakea, then I think she's got a chance of winning this race. So it's on that cusp. Obviously, the different concessions we get in different races makes you think slightly differently, doesn't it? But I think she's got a chance at the prices because I could make her a little bit shorter. But it does look deep. So that said, do you think it looks deep, or have you got a bit of a stronger opinion on one in here?
Yeah, no, I think it is competitive. I think you can, the top couple in the market, look really promising. Catalina Del Carpio, I think, is a really nice horse in the making. Inexperienced, only 2 racecourse starts. Is that going to prove to be a bit of a negative? Similar comments really for Serenity Prayer. She looked all at sea at York, but still her ability managed to get her through into second behind Whirl in that Musadora. That obviously looks a bit better now. after ran a cracker down at Epsom in the Oaks. She could step forward quite markedly. She could step forward for the step up in trip, definitely. And similar, Life is Beautiful. Yeah, I think she looked like she was a galloper at Newmarket, didn't she, behind Falakea? But I think if you can lay up with Falakea over a 10 furlong trip there, then you suggestive that you've got some ability, because Falakea has been supplemented for the Group 1 Coronation Stakes over the mile on Friday. So, she's quick without a shadow of a doubt. So plenty to like about Life is Beautiful. Yeah, she's probably the overpriced one. I think I'd agree on that. And I'd give a mention for Go-Go Boots as well, for John and Thady Gosden as well. Supposedly second string or additional string, if you will. William Buick jocks up, though. That's, a clear notable positive. I think you can throw out the Epsom Oaks run. She got behind and just never got into it, didn't handle the track. She's very closely matched with Serenity Prayer on that Musadora running. And there wasn't much between them. I think Go-Go Boots was actually coming back on Serenity Prayer close home for second there. And the blinkers go on, which is an interesting addition. We obviously saw John and Thady Gosden win a race on day one with a horse in first-time headgear. And it's often an angle to be sort of used with the yard. They can be profitable in doing so. Open race. Not sure which way I'm going to play it as yet, if at all. But I could see both of the Gosden runners being overpriced as things stand.
And I'd concur with that with Go-Go Boots as well, because he's like sort of like American-y type trainer, isn't he, John Gosden and stuff? Like they're quite happy to slap blinkers on for the sake of it, aren't they? Whereas I think some other trainers might not necessarily overcomplicate it, but they maybe make a bigger deal of it. I think that's probably why he does have such success with them doing it, because he didn't look before that Oaks run like she needed any sort of help. Right. But it was too bad to be drawing that Oaks run, and I like it. I like when a horse has, you want to sort of draw a line for it, and then there's a reason to maybe do that. So I did look at her as a big old price as well. Maybe they're the ones for the play spot then, but yeah, the front two look like they're really good horses as well, don't they? It looks like it's going to be a decent race. It'll be one of those that hopefully will be producing form lines left, right, and centre. But I really am just hoping that Life is Beautiful wins more for anything that it makes Falakea the monster that I think she is. And then it's nice little lines going through the week, which we keep getting after every single day. Right, Will, on to the feature race. I feel like it's the feature race of the whole of Royal Ascot, the Gold Cup. Been going for yonks, hasn't it? Obviously, no Kyprios this year. There was talk, wasn't there, after his comeback run that he looked like he had a niggle, and then they said that all was fine, and then obviously he has had a reoccurrence of that injury. So it changes the complexion of the race. My whole stance on this would be if Kyprios was sound, Illinois wouldn't be in the race. So I would very much think that it's not, I don't want to say like it's not an intended target, because they must have trained him for it, but even like Jan Bruegel, the ran at Epsom, you'd say, well, he could come in here and have a proper chance in the race. And I know Illinois had that St. Ledger win and or second, and he's like, he is a good horse. He's got that real good placed form at this in Group 1 company, but there's no guarantee he definitely stays. And for him to have been installed as favourite for this race, I think is just completely disrespectful to Trawlerman. And for all that he's been to Ascot, I think it's 5 times, he's been beaten 4 times. He's beaten Kyprios here. He did it on Champions Day, didn't he, in the Long Distance Cup? And then the year after, it was soft ground. I'd excuse him for that, because he looked, as an older horse, more like the 2 miles wasn't enough for him. He needed 2.5. And even when Kyprios beat him in this race last year, it proved that Trawlerman did stay. But after that Long Distance Cup battle, even at the time when I watched it, and even when I go back and watch it, I think Trawlerman basically mugged off Kyprios that day, got the tactics right and beat him in one of those clashes of, you've been running for a long distance, and then it was you get first run, or you let the other one make their move first and you get to follow him in. And I think that sort of Ryan Moore showed his class in the Gold Cup and let Trawlerman go first, and then Ryan Moore decided to kick at the right time and tactically got that one right. But in here, I don't think they're going to have to worry about any of that sort of stuff. I think Trawlerman can just be ridden as the best horse in the race. His figures are like Illinois, and there's a few other horses in it that can produce figures that are similar to Trawlerman, but I just think he should be like clear favourite for this race. He is 5-2, which is, I don't want to say skinny enough, but when I quite like a horse, Will, I want to be greedy and I want someone to give me 8-1 about an even money vote. You're never going to get it, are you? But it's because he sort of opened up 3-1, I think, or maybe 7-2, and he is being nibbled, but I think it's rightly so. I think he should, and I think he probably will go off clear favourite for this race. So that's where I sit with him. I guess my niggle with the price is the fact that he has been beaten 4 times of the 5. There are some horses in it that could put performances up there. Like Illinois could take a big step forward. He's only just turned 4, isn't he? He could be the new like Yates or Kyprios. And the fact that Tournament is that bit older and he has been beaten by like a stalwart horse that turns up, he is susceptible to come second or third maybe. And I did used to think he was a bit of a dog as well. So that's not the most positive thing to be saying about a horse that you want to steam into. So all that said, we've got the dead 8 runners. If they'd have made him 7-2 or 4-1, I'd be thinking of getting stuck into him each way. The fact that he's a bit shorter makes me a bit reserved to actually want to just have the wind dart on him. But I'm basically talking myself in and out of Trawlerman being the winner of this race. But I think he does have a favourites chance. So he's definitely where I'm going to sit in this one. How about you, Will? Is it as complicated as I've made it sound about Trawlerman? or do you think it's probably a little bit more straightforward?
Well, I think it's an interesting angle in with obviously Illinois being in here because Kyprios isn't. And that's a very valid point. But what Ballydoyle do is they love to maintain a specific pecking order, and until they absolutely have to, they won't upset that pecking order. And that's important, I think, for a number of reasons with the owners they've got and also the breeding standing that they have with various different horses. They like to almost, irrespective of their on-track performances, they actually have this pecking order that they want to maintain in the public image, if you will. So I think with Kyprios always being in there, you're never going to have a good horse that's going to go and take him on because he is the number one. He's the top boy. Yeah. So I don't think it's a negative to Illinois' ability that he's never sort of been pitched in there or he wasn't going to be pitched in there.
Yeah.
It's just now's the time for Illinois to kind of step forward and see if he is the next cab off the rank, if you will. And he could be. He could easily be. He would need to take his form to a new level. He was good last year, but as ever, up against the older stayers, you're going to have to improve and you're going to have to take your form to a new level, which he's not yet done, despite obviously a good win at Chester. I mean, Trawlerman should be favourite, I think. I think I'd be joining you with that. But that's tinged also with, Illinois, we've seen it time and time again, as yet isn't that good. But could easily be, as could Candelari. Don't forget about Candelari because he's an extraordinary horse, really, in that he's only been racing for a couple of months. He made his race course debut back in December, amazingly. And the steps forward he has made in terms of performance and progression is really, really notable. So he's another player without a shadow of a doubt. And we'll find out, about him. We'll find out about Illinois. Does that make me want to bet either of them? No. Does it make me want to bet Trawlerman because he's the standard setter? No. I think it's more of an informative race for me on that regard because I'm not sure. But Trawlerman sets the standard. That's clear to me.
Yeah, and I think that's as much as I like him, like I'm saying about the price and how I would probably prefer to have the option to be able to bet a sort of an each way sort of bet with him. I do accept that I think he sets the standard and he should be favourite, but I accept that also he's 7. There's new kids on the block, and maybe the bar that he sets, it's definitely a bar that could be surpassed. But again, it's just the Kyprios stuff last year. The other thing that I get in my head about as well, Will, is I think Illinois is a bit of a monkey because him and Jan Brugger and that St. Legend looked like they both didn't want to win it, even though they edged each other on and then they both went miles clear. So I think that what Jan Brugger did at Epsom especially, I think is a big boost for Illinois. I know it's a very different way of racing, but for Illinois to go with a horse like Jan Brugel when maybe I thought Jan Brugel was being a bit of a monkey, and then for other horses that couldn't go with Jan Brugel, that again, if he's being a monkey, he's being a monkey, that Illinois was still able to go toe-to-toe with him. And it does worry me because Ryan Moore is a phenomenal jockey that, like I say, when that ride on Kyprios to beat Trawlerman, if you watch the long distance cup and then you watch his one after, you'll see what I mean about the timing of when they go past each other. It makes me feel like Ryan Moore looks at Trawlerman and says, I know how to beat him. And then it's just a question of how he beats the rest of them. And with Trawlerman being that standard setter, it could even be a case where Ryan Moore's just like, I'm just going to let Will Buick do what he wants, and I'm just going to make sure I beat him. And if the French horse is miles better than us, then so be it. But I feel like Ryan Moore going into the race would have like a much easier time of things than Will Buick might have, especially if Will Buick watches this preview and realises that I fancy him. So it makes it difficult, isn't it? But it looks a good race. Everything's obviously price driven, isn't it? Like I say, if I could get 4-1 about Trawlerman, I'd be sitting there saying he's my strongest each way bet of probably for a long period. And I know he's only a little bit shorter than that, but I I do want an each way bet to have like a better probability of it having the win chance than maybe I feel like Trawlerman's got. But I think I'm overthinking it at this point, Will, and I think it's just Trawlerman's race to lose.
Yeah.
But I do accept that he might not win the race. But fingers crossed he does, because I like Trawlerman and we want him to win. Right, see if I can do it a bit quicker for the Britannia. We've got 29 runners in here, Will. Handicap over a mile, the straight mile. I don't even know where to start. Even reading out the odds. We've got about maybe 8 or 9 horses that are as short as 8 to 1 and as big as 12 to 1. It's all over the shop. But the way that it's listed up on the Racing Post site, I'm looking at it now, we've got Labot in at 9 to 1. We've got Brave Mission at 10 to 1. Consolidation at 11 to 1. Fifth Column 11 to 1. Rafed 11 to 1. Taroom 11 to 1. Parole Doro is 12 to 1. Serengeti is 12 to 1, but as short as 8 to 1. And then it's 14 to 1 or bigger the rest. Bit of a novelty race, the Britannia, would you say, with the greatest respect? Is it one that, from a betting perspective, the firms as well, right, Will? Again, I mean, I know we've got some sponsors and things like that as well, so hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this. 29 runners and 4 places is the most that they're offering, like anyone's offering. Like it's a novelty, isn't it? Right. Anyway, that's enough abuse given out. How do you find an in this race, Will? Is there one?
Not as yet. I mean, it's one of the trickiest races of the whole week, really. Obviously, 3-year-old unexposed milers, a lot of them, have either had one handicap start or are making their handicap debut. The weight range is only £10 between top and bottom, so 30 horses rated within £10 of each other. Essentially, it's a Group 3 mile race for 3-year-olds, isn't it? Just which of these is the potential Group 2 horse in it, maybe, and which of these is just a listed horse over a mile. That's essentially the way to look at it, and it's really hard to be categorical. I'll give you a short list of 4 or 5, and obviously depending on how things go on the straight course today, and we'll maybe have a bet on 1 or 2 of them depending on price as well. But again, it's far from categorical by any stretch. I thought Fear Not had to be on a short list for Clive Cox. He was a very impressive winner over course and distance. That can count for plenty last time out. Shout is on the short list for the Crisfords. First time Visor on. 7 furlongs last time out. Just got going a bit late. Well run mile. I think will really bring about an improved performance from him. And then we're going down to those right at the bottom, actually, on who might squeeze in. They're both reserves, but one horse has come out of the field, so whether the first reserve squeezes in or not, I don't know, but time will tell. If he does, Competizione for John and Thady Gosden, I think is really interesting. I think he's potentially really nicely handicapped on a mark of 90. On the back of his penultimate start at Doncaster, where he matched strides with Nakib, who sadly has since been ill-fated in a race at Newbury, but he was essentially a 100-plus rated horse in the making, Nakib, and Competizione was very closely matched with him. He went to Chelmsford, where he chased home Arabian Story, who's in here as well, who's clearly unexposed and interesting too. But I thought Competizione was ridden, perhaps with handicaps in mind, let's put it that way. I think he's, a classic horse that John and Thady Gosden have thought, right, let's try and get him in right at the bottom of the Britannia, and then we'll have a proper crack. So he's interesting. And King Casper is the other one, who's the second reserve for Hugo Palmer, who won at Newmarket on penultimate start, and then ran really well at Haydock in the Silver Bowl last time out. Made too much use of on the front end into a headwind, but stuck around long enough to make you think, well, if ridden a little bit quieter and gets a trail into the race on in his particular group with a first-time hood on, I think there's more to come from him as well. But, I mean, really, you could open out the shortlist to about 10, 12, 15 if you really, delve deep enough into the form. So, bit of a minefield, but a few that certainly are worth having a second glance at.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks for that, mate, because it's a tricky one. Again, it's from a place spot perspective, it will be the 4 places. Ends up being Sod's Lord and the favourite place. Loads of people haven't got a clue, so they've just put the favourite in, and it ends up being the worst leg to get through anyway. The few that I had on the shortlist, Shout was definitely one of them, because Fluff like the start last time as well, didn't he? So it's like, to do what he did. I mean, I know the handicappers have to be, I guess, kind in those circumstances, but I was surprised that he didn't go up for that run, considering that if he hadn't fluffed the start, I think he would have won and he would have gone up a couple of pounds. So that might work out as a benefit. He's still got Rab Havlin on though, so that maybe negates the benefit of the fact that his handicap mark's better. But he's a good jockey on his day, isn't he? He can get stuff done. Fifth column, I thought, was the one towards the sort of front of the market that it was more interesting than some of the other ones. He was a bit lazy last time out in front. So again, when headgear goes onto a horse where I think it makes sense or I want to put a line through something, it looks like a logical move. I think the £6 rise for him, in theory, could be lenient for the fact that I think he was holding a bit back in himself. And I know he wasn't, but if he wore cheap pieces last time and it meant he ran all the way through the line, I think he would have potentially been risen more than £6. But there's a lot of if nuts and maybes with that one. You do go back to his 2-year-old form, though, and he didn't win as a 2-year-old, but he's got some nice enough form. It was an eye catcher on debut and then just didn't really step forward from that. But he feels like the type of horse that I think a few of them are like it, where they're nice types and then just whatever reason it hasn't gone quite forward for him. He did run here, and you've touched on like course form here would be a bonus, especially in a race like this where it's difficult to pick them apart. But I'd excuse what he did in September because it was soft ground. And he was a late starter as well. He didn't make his 2-year-old debut until August. So I feel like they rushed him a little bit just to get him out and about and experienced, or he may have had some sort of niggles or something. But he's been gelded before this season. Like I say, he's won a couple of times now. He was lazy last time out. The cheap pieces have gone on. So I feel like he's, like a few in here, he's probably got a lot more ability than he's shown so far. And if it all clicks, then he's the sort of horse I think could win this in an absolute rout. The other one at a bigger price I quite liked, which is, I don't know, I like it more because of the price than anything else, I guess. But it's the Thingle Raven for the Osbornes. Real big trend ticker as well for a race like this, which is a bit of a tricky one to even analyse, I guess. But you look at the last couple of runs in Meydan, and I know he's been beaten, but was behind Ruling Court. He went and won a Guineas after that. Potentially was going to be like almost favourite for a Derby, wasn't he? And I know he's come third the other day, but it was potentially too quick a turnaround, and he's run behind an absolute weapon. Thingle Raven also ran behind Al Qudra, who maybe hasn't shown that he can match up to the figure that he's got it, but they're both undoubtedly 100+ rated horses. And for the fact that Thingle Raven wasn't too far behind him, the mark of 93 looks more than workable. And it's a horse that's making its handicap debut as well, and has always been cited as sort of a fast ground horse. When it's been running over this side of the sea before, it's not been getting the ground that I think it maybe needs. So that one just looked grossly overpriced at 25-1. But again, just 4 places up for grabs from an each way bet. I'm just not interested, I think. But one's for the place pot, maybe. We'll see how they do. Maybe some bookies will watch this and they'll give us some extra places. But I feel like 30 run a handicap, they should be offering us at least 6, shouldn't they? So let's see if we can get some sort of petition started, Will, and see if anyone pays any attention to what I'm saying. Right, we will move on, though, to the penultimate race on Thursday. The Hampton Court Stakes, Group 3 over 10 furlongs, so 1 mile 2. We've got Trinity College, head of the market, 3-1. We've got Detain, second favourite, 7-2. Those two obviously clashed in the Prix du Jockey Club. I don't think that either of them had any excuses in that race, to be fair, but this is now dropping back to a Group 3. That was a Group 1, wasn't it? High Stock's next in at 4-1. Then you've got Jackknife that's 15-2. It's 10-1 and bigger the rest of those. How did you split this one, Will? Because the markets can't completely make its mind up between Trinity College and Detain, but it does seem that they are erring on the side that Trinity College will be favourite in this race. So I guess first and foremost, do you think that's right, that Trinity College will reverse the form from the Prix du Jockey Club? And then do you think the winner does come from one of those two, or is it somewhere else?
Undecided on all of those factors, I think is probably the best way of putting it. Well, Trinity College was basically in the French Derby as a pacemaker, really, for stablemate Camille Pizarro. Now, I'd say pacemaker, in the loosest sense, because he's a very good horse in his own right. And often with these Ballydoyle horses that go out and set the tempo, as we saw in the Derby with Lambourne, they're often good enough to keep rolling and go and win the race itself. So you don't want to leave them free. And Trinity College basically, ensured that solid tempo and then was switched off the rail to allow Camille Pizarro essentially that inside run. And it meant that they won the race with Camille Pizarro. But Trinity College wasn't far off, by any stretch. And Detain's the interesting one because he had a slightly wider passage and he was on the outside, but he had a really awful head carriage actually in the final couple of furlongs. Really sort of wanted to lean into the horse that he was challenging on the inside. I don't know whether that was just greenness, whether, what it was, whether it was a a willingness not to properly go and run through the line, or whether he's just a little bit starey, and I don't know. But it sort of put me off him a little bit, which is a shame, because I think he's got, a good level of ability to Tane on what he did as a 2-year-old. And then he ran a nice race in the French 2000 Guineas, didn't he? But yeah, just mindful of his attitude now, I think, with Detain. So might be looking to those at bigger prices here. Jackknife is interesting for Roger Varian, Qatar Racing. He was third at Sandown behind Opera Ballo in the Heron Stakes. Very, very green and backward, really. And that would be the worry here. Obviously, he's only had 2 racecourse starts and pitched into a Royal Ascot race. He took all the world to get organised, and Asheen Murphy wanted to teach him at Sandown. This could still be a bit of a culture shock to him, for all that the ability might well be there. He will improve stepping up to 10 furlongs, but just that sort of gawkiness puts me erring towards the side of caution with him. And the one that might be interesting at a bit slightly bigger price is Tornado Alert, because he's run really good races in the 2000 Guineas and the Derby. On both occasions, he's very much suggested that this trip in the intermediate is what he needs. And obviously, 2 absolute top-notch races, 2 classics, and he's run with credit in both of them. This will be a lot easier. This is his perfect trip. Might just be the opportunity for him to go and win a race in his 3-year-old season here, Tornado Alert. And he's got James McDonald to assist, who's, always a go-to jockey at this particular meeting when he comes over. So I thought he was definitely very interesting, Tornado Alert.
Nice. Good insight there. So we've got 14 runners. There are some firms offering 4 places, but yeah, I got a bit muddled with Detain as well, because I like him. I feel like he's probably the form pick in here. You look at the fact that he hasn't won on turf, has he? He's only won on the all-weather, but the 3 turf runs that he's had have all been in Group 1s, and he's been mixing it in reasonable company. I guess it's opinion, isn't it, whether we think that the French Guineas and the French Derby stands up as proper Group 1 form over here. But I just look at Trinity College, for all that maybe he wasn't ridden last time with his best interests in mind, it was the best way to get his best performance, I thought. And I feel like they'll have to probably employ those same sort of tactics again if they want to try and get a repeat of the performance, which then makes me feel like he's definitely setting it up for something again, or it will benefit some others in there. Detain's the problem one, isn't he? Because of the fact that I agree with the head carriage stuff. Like, I wanted to blame it on Christophe Soumillon, thinking, oh, maybe it's just the way that it was ridden. And when Colin Keane rode him in the Guineas when Henry Matisse won that, which I still think looks all right form, given the fact that Field of Gold's an absolute aeroplane, and then Henry Matisse did go and beat Rawling Court. And this is a Group 3 race after all. I feel like Detain has no excuses to not win this race, but I'm a little bit scared of him not going through with it or messing about a little bit, or if he does start to hang and things like that as well. So he's the type of horse that I don't know if I'd want to wait to bet him in running, or I'd want to get out in running if he's doing something, but it's probably going to be too late by the time that he's made an inkling to do something, or if he hasn't. So I feel like he's the right one that's in there. And you were right about Jackknife as well. That run at Sandown was very eye-catching. It was only his second start as well. Opera Ballet is an absolute monster of a horse. But again, I've echoed the same sentiments, that it's a lot to ask a horse to come to Royal Ascot on the 3rd start when they did look like they were still learning their job last time out. But look, he could be there, but he's got a reasonable bar to get past if he wants to actually go and beat a horse like Detain. So, yeah, it's a tricky, trappy one for me to make like a final decision on. I need to do a little bit more work. I think I need to wait and see how the market settles out a little bit with some of them. But yeah, Jackknife and Detain would be the 2 that I would probably end up siding with one of those 2 for a bet if I was going to have one in here. I think I just need to spend a little bit more time watching Detain's races back to see if I can really fathom whether he actually is a bit of a monkey or not, because I did think that Docklands was an absolute dog, and that didn't pay dividends on that day at Ascot. And I think sometimes we can be a little bit quick, can't we, when we see a horse do something? Yeah. We don't know as well with riding styles and stuff, because I don't know whether it might not be the case, but it could have been the case that because he was on the outside of horses, Christophe Soumillon was having to pull him in because he was trying to hang left. I don't know if that was a thing, but then also if he's at Ascot and it's the same part again where they're coming up the home straight and he wants to log to the stand side, whichever way, if it was or it wasn't that, it's not a positive, the fact that he's going this way around.
No, exactly. I think a lot of people get caught up with finishing positions, and you see a lot of 2s and 3s and you instantly think, oh, this horse doesn't want to win. But that's often not the case. I think that the more important thing is to actually watch the race and watch the horse's demeanor and behavior, because that will tell you so much more than a finishing position. You look at the form and see 2-3, 2-3, 2-3. you know, they might all be in top-notch Group 1 races, and suddenly you're racing in a handicap, and you think, well, okay, you know, you might still think he's not going to win, but actually it's just the class of the horse. And the demeanour is far more important. And like I said, with Detain, just that, whatever it was, it didn't look like a, you know, something that you would put maximum confidence in next time out, whatever reason it was.
And that's the big fun of all this analysing races, trying to have a bet and then trying to get stuck into them, because he's very much, if there's a horse in here that's going to absolutely bolt up, I think it is either him or the Ocean Murphy horse that we were talking about as well. But like, I feel like Detain would be the type of horse that will go and win like Field of Gold did, and everyone would be like, well, obviously we knew he's good. Look at his Group 1 form. Like, look what he's been doing. Like, it was almost the obvious type one, but well, there's plenty of chances to get stuck into other horses in there. And like, if you do have a nagging doubt, and then you speak to people like yourself that have got the same thing, and a couple of my mates messaged me as well, and they were like, don't do it with Detain. You know, if enough people are saying something, then there's no smoke without fire. Probably is there, but we can be. I'm happy to be wrong and let him go and win a race. I guess that might be why I might not have an interest in that race. Right, on to the lucky last, Will. Buckingham Palace Stakes handicap, over 7 furlongs to get out. 29 runners again, but we've got some nice firms that are offering 6 places. There's even a firm offering 7 places. So just do that in the Britannia, because you know that you're supposed to. A proper race, this one. English Oak dotted up in it last year, £1 higher. Is there any more to talk about? It would make you think, wouldn't it? Like, if you were a casual race goer and you went to Royal Ascot last year and you saw English Oak won the race last year and was back again, they'd beat. I mean, they're all going to back it, but then it feels a little bit like, do you remember that year that Live, Love, Laugh ran in the Grand National, and people were saying it's 100-1 poke, but everyone's going to back it, so it's the biggest like back to lay type strategy. I think it went off at like 12-1 or something, but he feels a bit like that. But he's got an obvious chance. He's not obviously in the same form as last year, but then you don't get the horses marked down if they're running to their number. So I don't know. You're trusting that it's been a plot for a long term, aren't you? And I worry about the fact that after he did win impressively, and they tried him in slightly better company, that he didn't prove that he was exactly the same horse as he was in this race 12 months ago. So look, he would be the safe option if someone said to you, what do you fancy in this race? But I don't want to play the safe option in here. The one I do want to go for, I think he's a real reasonable price as well, is Oliver Show. He's 14-1 in here, top price, as low as 11-1, but he's 12-1 generally, and there's plenty of places offering 14s. Now, the one thing with this horse is he does have a little bit of a tendency. He has quite a big tendency to hang left. And when he was with Sir Michael Stout, when he was younger, he got gelded. And I remember thinking, well, maybe that's the sort of thing. Like, if you've got a horse being a bit of a monkey, you geld him, you put blinkers on, etc., to try and sort him out. Gelding didn't make any difference, and he's worn cheap pieces, and they've made no difference either. He loves to hang. But we'll remember how English Oak won this race last year on the stand side rail. The first, I don't even know what it was, like the first 50 of the field were on the stand side. They were miles clear of everyone else, weren't they? He's got the perfect draw. He's drawn maybe like 5th off the wing or something like that, but being drawn high in this race has historically been a massive advantage. He's a horse that hangs left, and he's going to have the rail against him. I don't see how he doesn't finally put in everything that he possibly can. And his second in the Lincoln behind Godwinson, I think, was a phenomenal run. He's one like Detain that hasn't won on the turf yet, but he's like second in a Lincoln, and he's running off of a £4 higher mark, which I think is lenient enough. He's had a wind up, which is maybe like the third that he's had in his career. So he obviously, it does make a bit of a noise as well, but it looks like he's been kept fresh for this. Maybe they had a couple of targets. Maybe the Lincoln was the early season target, and then they thought we'll go again for this. But I really do think he has the optimum conditions for a horse he's raced plenty. He's had 17 runs, but he's only a 5-year-old, and I just don't think he's had absolutely the optimum conditions to show what he's doing. He'd be one of these horses if he wasn't drawn as close as he is to the rail. I'd say I like him, but I couldn't possibly back him because he's going to have to waste so much time coming across. But I really think the draws helped him here. And if there's a horse that's got as much in hand as English Oak looked like he had last year, I think it is Oliver Show if he pulls it all together. But the perk we have got is, like I say, he's got that stand side rail. He's 14-1. There's 6 places up for grabs. I feel like he feels, especially for a horse that hangs, it seems like crazy to say, but I feel like he feels the most safe and solid option in this race. So relatively sweet on Oliver Show, but obviously fully respect that English Oak could just have been plotted for this and does the same as 12 months ago. So they're the two I'll probably be looking at. But yeah, considering there's 29 runners, I'm fairly blinkered. I think it's between one of them two. So Will, tell me I'm wrong, and then tell me who wins instead, or give me the TriCast.
And I'll give you a few options. Obviously such an open race. I'm not going to be quite so categorical to tell you you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination. But I think interestingly in here, there does seem to be a pace angle on all sections of the track. There's one drawn low, Run Boy Run. You've got My Owl under the standside rail, and then there's a couple drawn in the middle as well. Mirski, perhaps most notably. Thunderball can also race forward. So I think we'll probably have a fair setup in terms of pace on the track. You know, whether that means the best strip of ground is one side or the other, we don't know really, do we? But looking at it from that particular angle, there are some fancied horses drawn high as well. So you would think that Oliver Show in 26 is, you know, certainly not going to be disadvantaged. Let's put it that way. You've got English Oak 27, Never So Brave 28 as well. Another one that I'd add into the mix high is Acadian Thunder, because he's a bit of a hard luck story waiting to happen, really, or he has had hard luck stories happened a lot. So there's always often an excuse for him, but I think some of those excuses are genuine. I don't think it's just that he's a horse who always finds trouble. I think that's just the nature of it. And Ascot, you know, 7 furlongs, decent ground, well-run event is absolutely what he wants, and he's never quite properly had a clear run when he's had that setup. He won nicely at Doncaster last time out, which set him up quite nicely for this. So he's a definite player, I think. And the horse he beat at Doncaster, I think, is a player drawn low as well, Billy Joe. Similar kind of story, really. He's made for these big field handicaps at Ascot, and he'll run his race. If he wins his race on the far side, will that be good enough? Who knows? But I think he's got a definite chance. And then there was one other that I had an inkling for, which is, where has he gone now? I definitely did have one other. No, maybe I didn't. Maybe there's not many races this week that I've got confused with how many horses I actually fancy in each race, Dave. It's Royal Ascot. Oh no, Gleneagle Bay at the shorter prices. There we go. I'm so used to looking at those massive prices, Dave, that I missed Gleneagle Bay.
It's tricky when there's 29 of them to go in there. But is it interesting with Billy Joe as well? You say, because it was second, wasn't he? Like clear cut best to the rest. And another one, we talk about the mark for English Oak, £1 difference for this horse as well. So like there's I guess the draw's the big difference between the two of those ones this time around, isn't it? But there's plenty I think you can make case for in here, but you haven't put me off Oliver Show, so that's good.
No, I wouldn't do that. I can see your case. Yeah.
No, I know you never would anyway. Like it's just, a big field handicap where I'm trying to be bullish in the last race. Like I said, you don't want this to be you getting out stakes, do you? But it maybe feels a bit better than Wednesday's getting out stakes. Right, on that bombshell, Will, let's do our best bets again. So we'll try and go for a nap and a next best. I'll let you go first again so that I'll pick from the remaining races. But who would be your strongest fancy and your second strongest fancy for Thursday, day 3 at Royal Ascot?
Okay, we'll go. Let me see, just very quickly. We'll go next best bet in the Hampton Court Stakes, and I'll go with Tornado Alert each way. It might be that he finds one or two of these horses just a little bit too improving, too progressive, maybe. But 10 furlongs is for me absolutely bang on his trip, and he's run really good races in the Guineas and the Derby. This is his opportunity to run well. I think if he can get double figures each way, 4 places, really good bet for me, Tornado Alert. But without a shadow of a doubt, the best bet I think of the day comes in the King George V Stakes at 305, and it's Sing Us a Song for Rafe Beckett, been purchased by Wathnan, so James Doyle on board. Just a horse I was mightily impressed with what he did at Sandown on his seasonal debut over the 10 furlong trip. This track will suit, decent ground will suit, an extra couple of furlongs will suit, and he'll be much better for that performance. And it was already a really sparkling performance on any number of factors that you want to consider. I thought he should have been joint favourite, if not clear favourite, Sing Us a Song. He might well be come the time you're listening to this video, who knows? But I think he's a really, really solid, more than solid, really good chance in that handicap at 305.
Oh, I like that. Well, I mean, he definitely would have been one of the ones that I put up. So this lucky 15 is going to look juicy, I think. I'll do the best bet because it's going to be Oliver Show, I think, at 14s, especially from an each way perspective. Like, I think it's like Billy Locklane, we know he's a very good jockey. George Bowie knows the times of day. He's got the draw. I don't mind that he hangs against the rail because I think he's well handicapped in the right conditions. And in this instance, I think he has absolutely the right conditions to show that he's better than his mark. So he would be the best bet of there. For the next best bet, I'm sort of torn a little bit, but we'll go with your thought process in that opening race, the Norfolk Stakes, in the market without the front two, Clear Force. I'm not 100% sure what the price is, but we were saying he's double figures-ish, so we'll say he's 10
You can get
to 1.
10, 12 to 1 with a couple of firms, yeah.
Absolutely, and it's 3 places up for grabs as well. So again, if we're putting this in a lucky 15, I think they let you perm those ones up as well. But Clear Force, as much as there could be 2 very special horses in that race, Clear Force is in the bracket of, I think this is a very special horse as well, and I think he's definitely better than the rest of them as well. So your angling for that one will end up being my second best bet of Thursday. But that wraps up things. We'll be back to sort out Friday's videos and selection as quickly as we can. Then we're back again for Saturday. Then it'll all be over, Will, and we can start talking about Cheltenham again.
Something like that, Dave.
Yeah, that's it. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's a really good insight in there. Fingers crossed for a bit of luck for us on Wednesday, day 2. And then coming into this, let's hope we can continue the good form by getting out a very good day 3 set of results. But I will see you again tomorrow, Will, and we will see all of you again tomorrow too.